Lotus family, and hi, hello. Welcome back to another live witches chat. If you haven't already, go ahead and hit that bell icon so you get all the notifications of when I post and or go live. So I have an entire stack of books that we're going to go over. A lot of questions. There's an interesting conversation, which I fucking love these conversations. That is developing on TikTok right now, which is Southern Conjure, Appalachian folk magic, and multiple other conversations regarding these things are going around. There are also a couple of videos that are kind of resurfacing that are a little bit misleading when it comes to certain things, and I'm here to clear that up. Before that, though, I wanted to share, if you follow my TikTok, you know I started a mini-series about how my partner's a witch without realizing he's a witch, and now he's realizing it. So, small little story to that. Last night we were sitting down, we were watching a movie, Twins. I think it's called Twin or Twins. On A&E. And fucking, I kept getting this sensation that he needed a crystal. I've been slowly introducing him to crystals, especially when we watch movies. And I like handed him one, and then he's like, "No, I don't want it." I was like, "All right, fine." And like the same crystal was like, "No, you need to put me over there with him." So I put him right next. I put the crystal right next to him, and without me realizing it, the way that it looked like it was a pet that was just like looking up at him, and I thought it was pink. Oh my god, brain work. I thought it was rose quartz. It was not. It was pink calcite. And he finally grabbed it, and he's like, "Fucking A," and I was like, "What the hell is wrong?" And he goes, "I feel it." So my partner is officially has his first claimed crystal. That claimed him. With that, though, I also believe his psychic abilities are opening up a little bit too. But yeah, okay. So I am going to be going over 7 books. That if you want to start kind of researching when it comes to Southern Conjure, I'm also going to go over the definition of Southern Conjure. And in general, I'm going to go over Southern Conjure, Appalachian folk magic, a little of the history behind it, and the most confusion part to a lot of people is good morning. Some of the things that are used in Appalachian folk magic and other folk practices that are also used in other magical practices that some people would consider closed, because some of them are, as in you have to be initiated only, and or you have to be of that culture and or race and so forth and so on. And the reason that I want to talk about this now, before I say this, I am not an expert when it comes to Southern Conjure or Appalachian folk magic. I have been researching it and practicing it for about 2 to 3 years now, give or take. PTSD sucks when it comes to actually creating a timeline in your head. And all of these books can be found on the magical library that I have set up, which is an Amazon wish list, but it's for everybody to actually view the books that I have on mine. I promise I'm also going to update that today. Um, so yeah, that's where we're gonna begin. Now, if you cannot find these books, and this is where a lot of people are not gonna like it, but y'all know how I am. If you cannot actually get your hands on a physical copy of these books, some, I don't believe all of them, but most of them are on Z Library, as in Z and then library. It is a website to where you can get audiobooks and other books downloaded as a PDF copy. I understand if you're an author, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to take away from you, but we live in a really, really fucked up time right now financially for everybody. Um, so we're gonna just straight up deep dive. Now there are also 2 books. One book is not technically part of Southern Conjure. It's Southern Cunning. It goes hand in hand with it though. The other one is actually, there are 2 more. Hold on. See, this is what happens when I try to organize everything before I start these damn lives. Okay. Nope, that's not it either. Okay, yeah, I got that one too. So we're going to go over a lot. Now, to start off with, in general, if you want to learn about folk magic and multiple other things, this book right here, New World Witchery by Corey Thomas Hutchison. It's thick. She a thick one. She a college grade book is what I'd call it, but really great. Also, so many resources in this and references. So we're going to start off with the definition of Mountain Magic, Southern Conjure, and we're going to touch on root work because I'm not touching on hoodoo. So, yeah. Okay. So, Mountain Magic. This is often thought of as Appalachian folk magic, but is essentially found throughout the mountain ranges of the eastern half of North America from the Ozark eastwards, and it is also found in some rural locations outside of the mountains and is deeply associated with a practice such as herbal healing, midwifery, fortune telling, using through reading signs of natural objects like bones and skin markings, and faith-based healing. It is sometimes called granny magic. Now, there is an argument right now when it comes to granny magic and Appalachian folk magic. The reason is because there are two things that are not mentioned in here: granny magic and Ozark mountain magic, and Pennsylvania Dutch magic, okay? Those three things that I just named are found all up primarily around the Ozark mountain range, which bleeds into the Appalachian mountain range. They're all different depending on the region. You're going to find a lot of similarities, even when it comes to Appalachian folk magic. Depending on the region of said Appalachia, you're going to find different variations. And the reason is the history of it, which I'm also going to get into, as in how many things are mixed in with this, willingly shared. Faith-based, basically they use specifically the book of Psalms, but they do use heavily the Bible in their practice. And remember, when it comes to this type of magic, they did not actually consider it magic. It was just a way of life and a way of living. It's sometimes called granny magic, but that term seems to be a number of practitioners, so I mostly use the broader mountain magic term, which I also like that as well. And then we have Southern Conjure, which is something a lot of people do not understand or even think is an actual thing, and it is. Southern Conjure, outside of the healing-oriented of mountain magic and slightly akimbo from hoodoo, Southern Conjure pulls from a few different systems to create a flexible practice of spell work. It is also sometimes called power doctoring or fairy doctoring, as well as easily confused with witch doctoring. Loki, go away. This practice practices divination or protection, divination, work with specific spirits, and the creation of spells like pockets and witch bottles. It's frequently only used loosely for driven magical framework, can involve fragments of Pentecostalism, such as faith healing and or speaking in tongues, and even doing some hexes. Okay, sorry, I randomly saw a car and I'm like, that's not me, that's not my neighbors. There we go. Sorry about that. Pentecostal, faith healing, and even doing some hexing or cursing work. It is sometimes used inherently with voodoo, but this book I consider hoodoo to be firmly African American in origin and generally practices, while Southern Conjure is practiced by people from both black and white backgrounds much more wildly. Now, the reason that is with Southern Conjure, hello. Oh, hello, hello. Now, the reason that is, and this is where it gets complex, and a lot of people online or in certain communities will just completely ignore this fact, specifically focusing on the southern states and the Appalachian mountain range. Hello. You have to think, we're going to start off with Creole voodoo, okay? So when most people hear voodoo, they automatically think of traditional voodoo. There is also Creole voodoo. There's also a thing of Mississippi voodoo. Now, specifically with New Orleans, good morning, everybody. Specifically with New Orleans, if you listen to the episode that I did where I interviewed Bloody Mary, part 1 and part 2, you'll know that we briefly go over the history that it was a port city, which means you literally had people from all around the world. And they used to trade. Specifically, some of the incense and teas and spices came from India. Most of the herbal lore used in Southern Conjure and Appalachian folk magic heavily was from natives. They willingly exchanged these things. Now, you also have Florida, all of these states, you have Dutch, Scottish, German, Irish, blah, 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 not Russian, technically Russian, Slavic. I know I said that wrong. Salivik, you had, good morning. You had all of these cultures coming together at different points in times in history, and they what? Cultural exchange, which means both sides were willing to exchange these techniques to be able to use in their daily practice. Now, depending on the time frame, you also have to think, like I've said multiple times before, a lot of people did not actually consider this witchcraft or what we perceive modern times as witchcraft. It was a way of living. It was an everyday thing, especially in the Appalachia area. You got to realize there are some places even to this day are almost completely cut off from the modern world. So they used what they had. We're going to get into that too with the Jake Richards books. But this is the biggest misconception. When I first debuted that I was doing honey jars, the number one thing, well, you can't use honey jars because it's in voodoo and hoodoo. Yes, 100%. My granny, a Southern conjure practitioner, was taught by the slaves of his grandparents on in Kentucky. Oh, that is not the slave part, but you know, that is so cool. To also be able to actually know that from your family history. But I had a lot of people, and they're like, well, for one, I used to call it conjure. I was also told by other conjure people that were not white that for me, due to the fact that I portray myself as white, basically, I identify as white, people see me as white, the safest way to say that is Southern conjure, and then explain to them what I mean by that. So Southern conjure is a very, very real thing. Now, with Southern conjure, there's this cool little debate where you can't really do it necessarily or fully effective with it because some people do not like using the Book of Psalms and stuff like that in their practice because they view this disruption of it. But you got to think, in Appalachian, not just in Appalachia, we're going to say the mountains. In the mountains, they believed that, for one, a lot of them, that's all they had was their family Bible. And if you don't know what a family Bible is, you know the big ass Bibles that you can get. A lot of people, especially in like Alabama, all the southern states, their families would keep that. Basically, in my definition, it's basically their book of shadows because they would keep family records in there. They would sometimes do the hair clippings in there. Basically, anything that was extremely important, it would be put in that family Bible, and that family Bible would be passed on and passed on and passed on. I've even seen two of them that were fucking older than I was, and they actually did have variations written on the papers of said book about different ways that they can do it. Um, but with honey in general, honey is also used in so many different practices. It's also used in European folk magic. Honey jars themselves are also used in European folk magic. They're used worldwide. Are there different variants? Yes. Just because you see me doing a honey jar, I do not do it the same way. I still have my family's Bible. Oh, that is so cool. We found a Bible, I think here, and I've got to see if my father-in-law still has it. If he does, I'm going to try to get it to show it off. Tarns from the House of Witchcraft is an amazing sub. Yes, she is. Yes, I love her. Um, and it's also incredibly cool to actually start seeing other people pop up because I mean she's been on YouTube I think 3 or 4 years now. To actually pop up and start saying this because we need this to be brought up because there are so many people online where they're like, no, if you're white, you can't practice this. That's because they don't fully understand the history. Now, I will state, if you go down that journey of Southern Conjure, you also have to recognize and kind of, I'm trying to think of the right words, because there is a lot of African magic. There's a lot of all different types of, I think the proper term of people of color, POC, different cultures mixed in with that as well. But they did not steal it. It was culturally exchanged. And if people would actually pick up a book and read this, they would learn this. But you have to also carry that with you and celebrate that and recognize that it's also part of that too. I've started Southern Fried Witches podcast. Thank you for the recommendation. Of course, of course. Her book, Crossword Witchcraft, is an epic book. Go buy it. Oh, I did not know she had a book out. Now I have to go check that one out. Okay, the last one I'm going to read out of this is Rootwork. Here we go. Rootwork. This is often lumped in with hoodoo, but I like to separate it out because of the element of rootwork are very distinctive. Like hoodoo, this drives from African American folk magic, but seems to be more rooted, pardon the pun, in the coastal region of the Carolinas and Georgia, as well as few others like Florida or Maryland. Root work is often very focused on the natural elements such as the coarse roots from practitioners and plants, as well as their leaves, fruits, and flowers, and animal bones such as raccoon penis bones, also used in magical traditions. It can also be used for helping or hurting a person, and root work are known for the ability to help the case of legal troubles or interpret conflict as much as removing casts and curses. Now, I'm also going to read multiple other small little sections out of different books because Doctoring the Devil, I believe, let me check really quick. There's one section in here that actually goes over everything. And I want to see. Okay. And by the way, for anybody tuning in, this is how I work as a witch. Yes, I have all these books. Yes, I have this information, but I am not afraid to pull out a book and be like, this is where I stated that from, because all of these are very well sourced. She has 6 books. Oh, holy shit. I've got to check in. I have a group here that works with root work and from Delaware. It's amazing to see what they do. And I'm learning a lot. Oh, that is awesome. And it really is. Let's see. I know it's in here. Isn't it in here? Okay, yes. Yes, it is. All right, buckle up, people, because there's a lot of reading. But only chickens. Chickens are witches. Now, I do believe some people believe that. I believe witch is just a, like, unisex. Not unisex, non-binary term. There we go. Okay, so we're going to start off with types of workers, faith healers. Now, I'm not going to read all of this because there's a lot, but I'm going to get the point across. Also, for anybody who is new to my content, most of my content, I'm going to give you enough information to be able to do your own homework. No, men are witches too. Faith healers. Faith healers, also known as high men or power doctors, aided with elements by the movements of their hands, these ease of their breath, and the power of prayer. The word power has been corrupted of the title used in Northern Appalachia powwow, being chased to power, and eventually to the current form. Faith healers might also be known as fire talkers, wart charmers, thrush doctors, blood stoppers, and more, which I'm going to the specifics. Root and yard doctors. Root and yard doctors are also sometimes called remedy men. By the way, they say men in here, but I think females can be that too. I'm not for sure on that. I think they have their own term with that. Men help people using roots and bark. Yarb is the corruption of the word herb and was mostly used in the hills and mountains, where herbal doctors was the term used in the valleys and the cities. The folks would cure in their manner were known in their communities as local doctors, and they often held titles attached to their names. Okay, here we go. Oftentimes, for a woman, regardless of the age or parenthood, she was called a granny, mammy, aunt, or ma before her name. So, Mama Smith, Granny Elsa. This is the term of respect in elderment. Men were called Doc, Doctor, Uncle, or Paul. Research my family literature. Okay, there we go. Now we're going to go cows and horse doctors. I would love to actually meet one because I find it very interesting. His channel was literally has witch in it. They're the crowd. Okay, let's not do any arguments or anything like that. All right, cow and horse doctors. These are basically veterinarians in a way. There are also doctors who specialize solely in animal and livestock. They often use herbs gathered from the land and limitals of other drugs from their local drugstore, prepped in a home way to heal animals. They were often simply called cow or horse doctors. Although these little records of this title being added to anybody's names, both root doctors and cow and horse doctors sometimes also employed practices of Western medicine used at the time, such as bloodletting, cupping, vaccine administration, and even surgery, which is really cool. It's a compliment. I support the LGBT. Oh, okay. Okay. Witch doctors, conjure, root workers, hex doctors, witch finders, and love doctors. I love this so much. Next we have the witch doctor, the conjurer, the root worker, the hex doctor, the witch finder, and the love doctor. The witch doctor and conjurer or root worker, also opt to root doctor, worked roots not only for medicines of the body, but also for the mind and spirit. I hope I pronounced this name right. Horton Cooper calls them hex doctors, which is a carryover from Germany, where they used hexen means witch. The hex doctors sold powders and roots such as Adam and Eve's roots, an orchid native to the mountains, and High John the cockring root. They were also love doctors who aided folks in finding and keeping love or calling a lover back home. They gave powders to be sprinkled into the lover's path or directly on them, creating the hex or root and doctoring it. While many known this as conjure or root work, whose aid in the work, as in they called it doctoring the devil, hence the name of the book, where you're doctoring a root for someone or doctoring them of a root they're currently under. Basically, when you hear me say uncrossing, that's what it does. It removes those roots that have been thrown on you. And then we have folk magic verse conjure. Now, this is a very interesting thing. And I'm actually probably going to read the majority of this. Folk magic versus conjure. Some say anyone can become a true conjurer or root or witch doctor, while others say you have to have a gift in order for it to do right. Here as well, I will make that decision or distinction as I see it between folk magic and conjure. Folk magic or root magic is the magical art of using roots and things to influence, incorporate, attract, avert, or change in a situation to the present, future, or in some manner. Basically, being a witch. Manipulating, using herbs, crystals, roots, and stuff like that to manipulate the situation to get a desired outcome or to bring something or to cast something away. These include superstitions as tossing salt over your shoulder, exiting the same door you entered through least your spirit get trapped, turning into your pockets inside out to avert bad luck, carrying a buckeye or walnut in your pocket for luck or to ease arthritis. Now, there's a very interesting video that went semi-viral of somebody saying that you can just put roots or herbs in a satchel and carry it with you and it can help. That's what they mean. That is a folk practice because they believe just being able to have the herb on you or carrying it with you, you could be able to get that power versus having to actually consume it. Conjure. Conjure, on the other hand, is distinct and initially employment of spirits, whether they be spirits of the graveyard, the ancestors, simple spirits of the land you live on, or other presidents to work on your behalf, which is what I do. I am a conjurer. Multiple other things, but I am a conjurer. Anyone can be a witch. It's not a gender term. Exactly. I'll probably be live for about an hour and 30 minutes. Maybe 2, depending on how all this goes. But they work with spirits. This includes angels and God. Yes, God is worked with here. He is the first conjurer after all. I personally discredit that. I personally, in my personal believe that if I were going to do that, Jesus would be the first conjurer and or the first witch, if you will. My personal views, I understand people feel different. He is the first conjurer of all conjuring up in the world, 7 days. Conjure is root work and folk magic, but with the helping hand, whether it is helping to get a bird's eye view of a situation or taking care of things for you. Conjurers are experts when it comes to the unseen. They know how to deal with it, make it, hand it, cure it, or repel it. They take folk magic a bit deeper and knowledgeably work and twist with the hand of nature in their favor. We both walk here in spirit stimulation, and sometimes continuously. It is nothing for me to walk down the streets and okay. That is the definition of conjuration, and that is also what we mean by conjure. Now, again, to start off with conjure and folk magic from the Appalachians and 2 books that you can very easily keep up with. These 2 books right here, Backwoods Witchcraft, Conjure, and Folk Magic from Appalachia by Jake Richards, and the second one, Doctoring the Devil. He also has another book coming out this August. The reason I love this book so much is because imagine if you just got a random letter or phone call from like distant relatives you've never met, and then you go to hang out with them. Imagine like one of your cousins meeting you for the first time, not having any anxiety or anything like that, and just grabbing your hand and saying, all right, come on, I'm showing you the holla. That's how this book is written. It is literally like somebody is walking you through it. It's fucking amazing. I also love the second one. I love the second one too. They're chock full of resources and informations. It's amazing. And obviously, This goes over everything, and I'm not even joking. It goes over fucking everything. Also with a shit ton of resources. Now, there are 2 other books that are going to be controversial to some people. My country's coming out. Damn it. Now, this book, Southern Conjure, Folkloric Witchcraft in the American South by Aaron Orborn? I hope I said his last name right. It's this book right here. This is going to be different from all the books that I just showed you, because this is specifically kind of with Florida and Maryland, but this particular person's own specific craft. It's an amazing book, though. It teaches you a lot of things, especially if you live here in Florida, how to use some of the plants that we have here in your practice. It is also, to me, it gives me kind of a mixture of like traditional witchcraft mixed with folk magic, or folkloric magic. It's an amazing book. It's very thin. Amazing book, though. It also goes over an entire chapter of bioregalism, which is important to any practitioner, no matter how many times, no matter how many years you're in it. It's amazing because it helps you to decipher what's an actual sign or omen versus a random bird that you see on your property every day. Now, so we got that one. It's a great book. This one of the controversial ones. But again, historically, and just to have in your actual library, it's amazing because it goes over so much when it comes to hoodoo, the history of it. But this also explains how you can use, and I can slightly show you the list of everything you can use. Granulated sugar, brown sugar, confectionate sugar, simplified sugar, sugar cube, sugar package, loaf sugar, cane sugar, molasses, shotgun sugar, corn syrup, honey, everything. It teaches you how to make it. What is the name of the book? Sorry. Oh, Southern Cunning. Southern Cunning. And like I said, these books that I'm showing you now, they are on my list. Click the link tree, and it has Magical Library. These are automatically up there because I've added them, including this one right here. This basically breaks down, and the reason I love this book is because it's not like an author wrote it. These are interviews from a book series that I will get my hands on. There we go. It is from interviews done by a guy who created hoodoo, conjuration, witchcraft, and root work, which finally saw print in 1970s. He originally did this. He went through a shit ton of southern states interviewing hoodoo practitioners, recording it on a wax cylinder. That's fucking amazing. But there's like a 6 book. There's a 4-book volume that these are after. So basically, he'd ask a question, and then all of a sudden, he would pull from one of the interviews. It's amazing. It goes over the history as well, and you get to hear firsthand experience from these people that have been practicing it way before, depending on how old you are, we were even thought of. Amazing book. I had a bird tap on my bedroom window multiple times the other day. He wanted to come tap and fly away and come back a little later. Could that mean anything? Depending on the bird, it could be an ancestor. It could be a spirit. A lot of birds are associated with ancestry, as in they're trying to give you a message, or they're just saying, hey, we hear you. So yeah, depending on the bird, if you can identify it, look up the spiritual meaning of that bird, and then try to look up the metaphysical meaning of that bird. That's normally how I do it. This is so awesome. I'm going to get the books. They're amazing. Now, there are going to be, I'll go ahead and get this one out of the way, and there are going to be 2 Conjure books. One of them is for, it's not really for advanced, but there's a lot of advanced things in there to where if you're not fully used to working with spirits and things like that, it could potentially be slightly dangerous. The second one is an amazing book to have, not to mention the different types of petitions in this book is just fucking amazing. Blue Jay. More than likely, it was a spirit, as in like a family spirit. Robins and blue jays both have those associations with seeing a spirit, or it being an ancestor trying to reach out to you, or basically showing you a sign that everything is going to be okay. Now, this one right here is Paper in My Shoe. Name papers, petitions, prayers, and prayer papers in the Hoodoo Rootwork Tradition by Kathleen Yarwold. This right here. And this goes in the history of so many different types. It also teaches you how they've done it throughout the history, how you can create petitions. And now with a petition, the number one thing you need to do is you need to word it like you already have it. There are certain words that you do not put in a petition. This book goes over that. But basically, you're petitioning, or prayer paper, whatever term you want to use, you are petitioning the universe, which means you're addressing them, but you're using the terminology as in you already have it. That's also what I do. I've read that book. I make my own petitions when you come to me specifically for honey jars. Normally, when I do it, I will take your petition and I will turn it into a sigil. So when you see me add papers to it, that's what they are. There's also a specific way, depending on how you were taught, how you're supposed to do it. Number one thing, you know the brown paper bags that you can get? It doesn't matter if it's from McDonald's, all that stuff. Start collecting them, because that is some of the best petition paper you can use. Also, if you're going to make a petition going into a honey jar, do not use a marker. I learned this the hard way. Using a Sharpie marker, it will bleed off into and just turn everything black. So don't do that. That was the very first honey jar that I ever made in my personal practice, and I had to redo it. Now, the second ones. I'm going to go over one of the best conjure books that I've ever fucking read, because they give homage to the actual roots that make Southern Conjure up, which is this right here. It is The Secret Keys to Conjure, Unlocking the Mysteries of American Folk Magic by Chase Boggin, forwarded by Jackie Smith. And when I tell you, it goes over everything. It goes over everything. It goes over tricks, recipes, the forward, the introduction, unlocking the psychic awareness, unlocking blessings, good luck, healing, spirit purification, unlocking protections, unlocking influence, unlocking sexual incitement, unlocking love, wealth, justified hexes, unlocking spirit conjuration, and the master key. One of the reasons I love this author and I love this book is because one of the first things he states after it goes over the history is the number one thing of a conjurer or even a witch is to know when to hex versus mundane, or versus a trick or something like that. So many people nowadays, of the day of the internet, they automatically go to hexing. Hexing is not always the answer. There are also justification spells. And basically those spells are worked out to where instead of it just being a slap on the hand for somebody or their entire life falling apart, they're not going to learn a lesson like that. But if you do a justice spell, there's a retribution spell. The spell is basically fixed to where a specific, the thing that person needs to learn to stop doing, it'll repeat over and over and over again until that person in itself realizes, oh shit, wait, I should stop doing this. It also goes over another thing that I do not hear many practitioners talk about when you're educating people. You need to take into the psyche of the person you're about to throw something to. If they're on a brink of a complete mental breakdown, no matter if you give them a blessing or a hex or something like that, it can trigger that. So when you're starting to cast people or cast on people, you need to make sure, for one, it's for a damn good reason. Like, if somebody pissed you off and reported your video or some bullshit like that, don't do that. Mass reporting people, taking their entire lives down. You never know what that person is going through. You never know how many small things can help somebody. That's why when I go out in public, if I see somebody that's having a weird day or have a weird look, I'll try to give them a compliment, because that one compliment can change somebody's entire fucking life. Please always remember that when trying to do something. And yeah, I'm not going to get into that, but this book is amazing. He goes over so many things, and it's a very understandable way. I have a learning disability, so there are a lot of books like the New World Witchery book. There are a lot of terms in there that I'll have to reread that over and over again for me to fully understand, or I have to Google it, as in Googling the definition of it. This one right here, though, it's very, very smooth where it's written. He goes over the history, so many other things. There's so many recipes. It's a hands down amazing book. I would honestly start you off on that one if you're interested in conjuration or Southern Conjure. Now, this one right here, you can actually find a preview of the audiobook on YouTube. Exactly right. I do the same thing. Be kind goes a long way. It really does. It really does. Being kind goes more than saying a couple of bad words or something like that. And not to mention, some of the best hexes that you can do for somebody is to bless them. You know somebody who's going through drinking or something like that. Create a situation if they need to stop because they're putting other lives in danger. Use mundane things to also affect people and help them heal. Now, this one right here, like I said, it is also forwarded by the author of The Psychic Witch. It is Mountain and Conjure and Southern Root Work. Specifically, if you want more of, like it said, root work and like the whole mountain area vibe, you're going to go with this book versus this book. Okay, so there's kind of a difference with these two books. This is more kind of homage to the original things that made Conjure up. This one right here is more of the Appalachian mountain region, obviously Mountain and Conjure. But this one is also slightly advanced, as in, like I said before, there are spiritual techniques in here to where if you're not fully comfortable or knowing another conversation that started that needs to vetting your spirits or basically verifying that the spirit or deity you're working with is actually the person you think it is. If you do not know how to do that, then working with certain spirits, when I say spirits, I don't just mean land spirits. Multiple different types of spirits, and that's the difference, like it said before, in Southern Conjure and Conjuration, we work with multiple different types of spirits. Now, I'm an Emetheist. Basically, I believe that everything has a spirit or an essence to it. So, like the trees, there are a lot of trees that have their own spirits to them. Multiple things like that. But if you don't know how to actually recognize and feel that spirit and understand it, you may be working with a trickster spirit and not even knowing it. And a trickster spirit can fuck your life up. And I know I'm not trying to fearmonger, but people need to realize that when we tell them, hey, maybe that may not be for like a first year thing, to at least take that with caution. Because if you go into witchcraft, whether that's Appalachian folk magic, no matter the practice, and you go into that with fear, you're not going to get very far. Fear is going to hold you back. Now, with that being said, I'm not saying go blaze in glory in there. No, keep your caution. Okay? Make sure, and I speak from a personal experience where one of the very first spirits that I worked with, I did not know what it was, and I thought I knew what it was. Did I get everything I wanted? Yes, I did. Every single time I got something I wanted, you know what? Something else was taken out of my life. It's kind of like one of those, yeah, I'll give you everything you want. In reality, though, I'm also taking shit from you. But every spirit you work with is going to have a different thing. Now, with that being said, when you start working with spirits, or land spirits, if you will, they're not like deities. Just like a deity can be like, no, I don't want to work with you. Land spirits will be the exact same. The number one thing with working with land spirits, respect. They have boundaries. They are not afraid to show you the boundaries that they have. But also in the same process, though, actually building that relationship up, it can unlock so many things. Now, another thing that I didn't go over, and another thing in certain mountain range, certain regions of the mountains, they believe that the difference also between like root working or like faith healing is they believe that spirit or God would bless you with those abilities. Now, he also goes over that in Southern Cunning. He goes over a thing with that too. And that is actually a lot of that is also in multiple other practices to where they believe that you have to be born with the ability. Now, with that being said, if you're not born or blessed with an ability, you can work that ability up. And I know a lot of people hate when somebody says, oh, well, no, I'm not saying you have to be a natural witch. But just like there are people who wake up and pick up a fucking pencil and become Picasso overnight, same thing works with magic or being a psychic or whatever you are. I'm a spiritual witch who does a lot of different types of magic. And then there's a Greek word, psychopomp. I'm a psychopomp as well. I'm not a medium or psychic, psychopomp. I think that's the term that best describes me the most. But it will change your life. Y'all have no idea. You're talking about the people that may have relatives from this area. When I read the first Jake Richards book, it was literally like I was experiencing and like, because my Aunt May was the oldest one that I remember to where I used to have warts on my hands. She cured them by telling me to go home, get and I looked at her and I'm like, wait, what? So technically this was my first spell. She told me to go home and get a potato. Cut the potato in half, preferably with a silver knife. Cut it in half and then get a penny of the year that I was born, 1993. You're going to rub that penny on all of the warts, and then you're going to put that between the potato, and then you're going to bury it under your front steps, and you're going to walk away and forget about it. I shit you not, I did this, and within a week's time, every wart that I've had went away, and I've not, knock on wood, I've never had them since. And it's insane because I didn't think that was magic. I didn't think that was witchcraft. We normally heard old wives' tale. That's what it is. But it can also bring you closer to your southern roots. Now, with that, there are going to be a lot of things that you're going to have to carry with you, and you're going to have to acknowledge. Ancestor veneration, basically. Um, but I also think it's important, just as a witch or a magical practitioner, to at least read one of the books. Because to me, a lot of witches, they like kind of hyper focus on their comfort zone and what they actually do. But there's this misconception that if you read a book on something, you're culture appropriating it. No, you're learning. That way you can also correct misinformation that's spread. Not to mention, I personally believe that the moment you come up and you say, all right, I'm a witch, it is also in your duty to be able to learn as much as possible on all different paths. Not practice them, but learn them, because you can learn different techniques. Like I've said before, if you get one of these books, especially the Doctoring the Devil, because the little notebook at the back, you will be amazed at how, and you'll also feel slightly ripped off of how much in like Wicca or paganism, where all of that stems from, of how much they don't use the same things that we can use in our everyday fucking life. I'm not even joking. You could literally do an entire apothecary from all of the things that grow naturally around where you're at, and it doesn't cost you a damn thing to be able to do it. We get hyper focused on all these cooking herbs and stuff like that. Yes, they work great, but have you ever used an oak tree? Have you ever used a weed? Have you ever used briars? Have you ever used anthill dirt? Have you ever used dirt dauber's nest, wasp's nest, spider webs, bird's nest? So many things are out in our front yards or at our local parks that we can use, that to some people may have a 10 times, it may be more effective depending on how you use it. Now, with that, a lot of people get uncomfortable because in I think both of these books, actually, in both of these books and the Appalachian books, there are spells and rituals and things that call upon the Book of Psalms or a passage from the Book of Psalms. I have only done one thing with that, and it was extremely powerful. If you are uncomfortable with that, this is where kind of people go back and forth. Some people say you're not going to be able to do that unless you incorporate that Bible, or at least that passage. If it is uncomfortable, look at it as a poem instead of the word of God, if you will. That's how I've looked at it multiple times. But also with this, if you have Christian ancestors, you would also technically be able to honor them as well. It will work. I had them, my grandma told me to pick up rocks for every one of my warts, put them in a paper bag, and go to the crossroads and throw them over my right shoulder and walk away and not look. Oh, I love that. I love that. But like, not to mention, there was this weird thing that kept going and it worked. 10 years old. So cool. Oh, that was so cool. Thank you for sharing that too. I also kind of noticed something as well. So when it came to what most people like, we're gonna use pagan as a term of witchcraft. From that, in general, I felt powerful, but not that powerful. It wasn't until I discovered Appalachian folk magic and Southern Conjure did I step into power that I had no idea even existed. And what I mean by power is I don't mean like physical power as much as confidence. It was something awoken in me, and I believe what that was is we have ancestry. I'm from a part of Alabama, and that part is literally the foothills of the Appalachians. So I grew up in just completely developed in all of this and hearing about all of it, but fully not understanding. And what's so insane about all of this was right before this stuff happened, the online content and all of that, I went through a 2-year spiritual awakening. One of the last years that I was in Alabama, I went to a Mabon festival. That Mabon festival was Norse themed because it was a Kindle, Kindle that was throwing it. One of my old coworkers and still good friends today. She was actually kind of one of my first students. In that one, I made a fuck up because at the very end of it, you did an oath or boast, basically. Like you're bragging about yourself. I didn't understand that because of the anxiety, and the mead was good. So when it got passed to me, I said oath, not realizing fully what I was about to do. And I basically made an oath to the old ones, the old North ones, that I would return back to my roots. A year and a half later, I discovered Appalachian folk magic. On top of that, I also discovered that I actually grew up in the foothills of Appalachia. And in the process of that, everything exploded. I got a reading from a psychic medium who told me that my ancestors were ready. They were more than willing. They've been waiting for me to reach out and make content, which is where the spiritual 30-day challenge came from. So I started working with my ancestors. Shortly after that, I found the books. And then I started, and here I am now. And the amount of things, because what people don't really talk about, and I wish we could get this conversation going, is each magical practice is going to have their different terms and their different. Remember, if you've been following me for a while, when I say it comes to native spirits, they have a rule book all completely different than what we realize, right? The same thing is with Southern Conjure and honey jars and Appalachian folk magic. It works differently. In my own experience, it works differently than what we were taught by having to go on the moon cycles. To like, I still tell people to wait full lunar cycle 28, 29, 30 days before seeing results, but some of this stuff can almost be instant. I did a honey jar back in April, and I'm still getting updates from this person of how well it is working out for them. And it's insane. And that's what we need to talk about, is how different practices can manifest differently. But at the end of the day, also remember that most of where this comes from, they did not consider it witchcraft. They didn't consider it magic. It was a way of life. It was a way of getting from Monday through Friday and being able to heal elements, whether that's a broken bone, a toothache, bleeding, wart chasing, snake wrangling, so many other things. But it was they all came together in different points and different times, and they willingly shared and exchanged these ideas. And now we're in this global like area in human existence where we're all online and we have so many opinions. The problem with that is, though, people are not actually researching. They're seeing one video of somebody they follow or they look up to of saying, hey, this and this, no, it's a no-go, and they run with that instead of actually going to the source. And that, I mean, now with that, have I ever came across something in one of these books that I should not practice, or that I had my ancestors are like, you ain't touching that with a 5-foot pole? Yes, I have. And you will do that, whether you work with your ancestors. And a question was recently asked of like, what spirits do we work with? The Appalachia folk practitioners, our ancestors, and technically God or Jesus, depending on how you believe. And that's where that comes from. And then you also have to think the belief in all of this. It's amazing once you actually sit down and see how complex this is. Now, there are going to be 3 YouTubers that I'm going to be posting on my community post. I very heavily encourage you to go follow all 3 of them when I do, because they all touch on the topics. One of them is Conjure. I gotta make sure I pronounce her name right. Conjure Kadia? Cardia? Conjure Kadia. I've talked about them before. They're amazing in what they do. They have so much shit on their website. They do like I do, where most of their information, like most of everything they do, is free unless it comes to an actual service. So there are hundreds of videos up. I don't know if there's actually hundreds of them, but you know what I mean. The one that was pointed out earlier in this conversation, the House of Witchcraft, them, Lady Grave Dancer, them, all amazing practitioners, and they know their stuff. And those are the books to get you started on this practice of that. And like I said, again, we also have to realize after I started learning this, I was like, okay, how can I advance the honey jar in my practice? That's when I started introducing sigils and runes from the Norse. Multiple different types of things that you can add to it. Now, the honey jar is really cool because it's kind of like a mojo jar. mojo bag, which also Jake Richards goes over, and most other of the books that I named also go over it, except for the honey one and the petition one. But they become a living, breathing thing, and you have to take care of it, which is mean like not dropping it, not banging it around. With most mojo bags, a lot of people do not believe that you're supposed to share them or even show them to other people because they can steal your mojo. And honey jars are kind of the similar thing, as in, as long as you're feeding it, depending on who made it, or depending on when you made it, depending on how often you think it needs to be fed, or how often you feel that it needs to be fed, is how you feed it. Well, how do I feed a honey jar? You can either burn a candle on top of it that is also the herbs and stuff that you used in that honey jar is also on that candle. Or you can basically add other sweet things to it, like hard candies, peppermint. And then to even blow your mind more, look at the aspects of the essential oils that are the herbal aspect of like peppermint. Look at that, and depending on what that is, incorporate that magical practice. The two most recent ones, which is the community jar and then another custom one that I just recently did, I actually got to use clove honey versus the normal honey that I use. Or the other two honeys that were sent to me. That was an experiment. It worked though. It worked very, very well. And yeah, but just because you see somebody online say, "Oh, well, this is closed, that's closed," either go to the source or do research. Now, with me saying do research, I personally encourage you not to use Google to do research on this magnitude or like this. The reason that is because Google, depending on what pops up at the top, is depending on how much they've been paid. DuckDuckGo, Bing, Ask Jeeves, if that's still a thing. Those websites, now there are, I think it's Google Docs. There are two other websites that are okay, but if you're going to use a search engine, use DuckDuckGo. And if you do not believe me, take this into your own hands. Go to both of them, type in the exact same thing about a subject, and then you compare what comes up. When you go to a website and you start researching, you need to see if they have references. That is what we used to do when we first started this before the interwebs. If we could find a library that actually had good books, we'd pick up that book, we'd go read, we'd try to find the reference, we'd pick that book up and just compete the process over and over again. And there are many, many more different types of conjuration books out there that I highly encourage you to go check out. And like I said, now y'all have YouTube videos. DuckDuckGo belongs to Google now. They purchased it. Not joking. Back to lurk in the chat. Oh, wait. Holy shit. Did they really? Okay, at this point, then Bing. Bing. But a lot of people, y'all forget YouTube. There are so many videos. Now, if you're going to look up a YouTube video, look up multiple ones. And there are also podcasts. So many podcasts that go over Southern Conjure, Appalachian folk magic. And the reason that I say do research is because depending on who randomly hears that you're in that community or you're practicing that, you're going to have to be able to let them know that, like, you know what you're talking about and you're not just trying to, like, portray yourself as something else. YouTube belongs to the same company as Google. Last time I checked. Back to lurking on the chat. Well, yeah, no, I know that. But YouTube, there are multiple videos that are not really filtered that out that much. With Southern Conjure, multiple ones pop up. But again, also, look through them. Watch multiple different types of ones. And I mean, New World Witchery, if you get your hands on that one, that has so many resources and references in it, it's not even funny. Now, what confuses a lot of people, too, about my practice is I also, and I'm also going to talk about this book, too, because it's fucking amazing. The Crooked Path. A introduction to traditional witchcraft. Now, before anybody comes at me or replays this, when we use the term traditional witchcraft, we do not necessarily mean that it is the most oldest ancient ones ever practiced. That's not what we mean at all. We just mean that it's more... I don't know how to word that, but we're not saying that it's like this old ancient practice. But it's really cool because I personally see a lot of similarities in conjuration, folk magic in this as well. Not to mention this book is amazing. There are exercises, there are resources in it. But in this book is where you'll learn on throwing the compasses. And the concept of this, and I love it, is most people, when they hear of a circle, It's a circle. It's also closed. It's a bubble. As above, so below, right? So in this one, and even in Southern Conjure and Appalachian folk magic, TikTok sells information more freely than most websites. Back to lurking in the chat. Oh, okay. You're going to hear of opening the crossroads. Now, yes, we also mean that, like, you can use crossroads. Be careful with that. That's where a lot of hitchhikers and tricksters are, or can be. But I like the aspect of a crossroad, or even casting a crossroad, because it's the energy is free flowing. It's not cut off in any way, shape, or form. But that's for another conversation. There's also this book, Folk Witchcraft: A Guide to Lore, Land, and Familiar Spirits for the Solitary Practitioner. I still don't know how to feel about this book. I like it, but I would state this is slightly an advanced book. Just because, I mean, it's a different type. How about that? We'll say that. But it's a really good book to have in your collection. I'm obsessed with collecting books as it is, not to mention I read all of these. The author to that book has a YouTube channel. Oh, okay. See, I did not know that. Ooh. Yes, and the author is Roger J. Holmes. But yeah, just pick a podcast. New World Witchery actually owns their own. He has a podcast. He's also got a YouTube page. He also has a YouTube page too. I don't think Jake Richards has a podcast, but he has been on multiple. I don't know if he has a YouTube page, but he has been on multiple different types of podcasts, talking about it. But yeah, that's how I started all of this. And again, there are more, but when somebody tells you, "Oh, that's close," no, it's not. Don't listen to them. When it comes to Southern Conjure, root work, and Appalachian folk magic, and in general, the only way, if you come across something that's Appalachia and it's closed, the only way that would be closed, as in it's kept in the family. Now, that was actually the author, Jake Richards, that was actually his biggest struggle when he wrote the first book, was he came to a point in time where he realized that the younger generations, they weren't carrying on the stories and the traditions that had been passed down verbally. Most of them were verbally. So he realized, he's like, it comes to a point where I can just not write this book and Appalachian folk magic would basically just die and almost cease to exist. Or, actually putting this in a book and getting it out there. And I'm so glad that he did, because it has sparked so many other people's, basically it's keeping it living on. And I believe when it comes to being a witch or a practitioner of any type, that's kind of in our jobs, is to make sure this knowledge is not erased in history. I mean, think about how many magical practices worldwide have been completely lost to history because it wasn't passed on. And in general, like I said, you're going to have to respect every single thing from all aspects, all religions, all places on the world. You're going to have to respect and own that is part of that. You need to recognize it and you need to carry that on. But in general, those are the books of how I got started. And I'm not done. Like, there are multiple other books that I will be getting and reading and advancing on. But my TikToks here recently, when I come back Friday, y'all will start seeing a little bit more of my own personal practice. I realized I did all of that without smoking a cigarette. Now, this week, I will not be going live on Wednesday because I have the interview to do on my podcast. And then y'all are going to hear it first because I'm technically running it now. From today, which is the 6th, all the way until the 18th, I will be running the full moon oracle cell, which basically you get a full reading for $10 via email. firelotusthewitch@gmail.com. I take 5 readings per day. And like I said, I'll be running that until the 18th because the 17th is the full moon. Yeah, the 17th is the full moon, I believe. So one time I look at that, didn't have it. God spell singing is a reference to a high priest and its relationship with a god. Thus, it is closed practice and technically because priestess is a unisex term. Priest is redundant and made up. Okay. Thank you for all that you do for us. I appreciate you. Of course, of course. And I do all this because I didn't have any of this. And the universe was like, yo, you need to get off your ass and go teach. So I'm excited, though, for everything that is coming this month. Stay tuned for that. So many unexpected little good things are going to be coming. Now, my plan is, as of right now, the week of the 20th and the 27th, which is the last 2 weeks of this month, is when I'll be holding my, I'm hopefully going to do 2. There's going to be 1 class 1 week, and then the second week, there'll be another class. As we get closer to that, I'm going to be fully announcing it. I do not know how many guests or how many actual spots I'm going to actually have. I don't want there to be like 100 people the very first time because that would freak me the fuck out. But it will be done by Zoom, and it'll be $15 per class. If that. It's either going to be $10 or $15. I haven't made up my mind yet. But yeah, there's going to be that, and then for the people that haven't been able to see it or for some reason can't see it, I'm working on a solution for that as well, so you'll still be able to watch it. The very first one is going to be on energy. I haven't figured out the second one yet, but I have a list over here of things that people want me to do classes on. And as always, y'all know I'm not going to speak on something or talk about something that I personally do not have enough information on, because that's silly to me. But yeah, that's how it is. And like I said, when you start looking at the correspondences of how things are used in Mountain Conjure, Southern Rootwork, Southern Conjure, it'll blow your mind because a lot of the times, some of them, the ant heel still fucked me up, but or the ant eggs fucked me up. Also, there are some insects, if you freeze them and then thaw them out, they will come back to life. I learned this recently. So if you collect fire ants or something like that, make sure once you freeze them, if you unthaw them for a spell, they're not gonna start crawling around. And yeah, you don't need ants in your house. But yeah, that's what's going on. I'm super fucking excited to do my class. This was it Friday? I think it was Friday. No, Saturday. Saturday, I spent the entire day actually making cliff notes because y'all know I can ramble. So that way, even if I do ramble, I'll be able to redirect back to what I'm trying to say. And I think it's going to be really, really fucking cool. I have so many podcast ideas. I'm going to be listening to a 2-part podcast that me and my partner created this past weekend. As in, I've got to re-listen to it. It is going to be an after night special. But we touched on a lot of great things. And it was just a random conversation that we had. So a lot of people that are practicing toward are normally ignored because they don't know random terms that they would use by random offenders to try to simplify selected practices. I completely agree with you on that one. But yeah, and as if y'all did not see the video, when I return back to TikTok, I'm going back directly to my original content. Education, I'm staying out of shit, all that stuff like that. There are a lot of videos, though, that I do have that I'm probably going to have to do a draft dump today, because my memory is being took up in my phone. But now, this month, here's something for y'all to look up. And I already know I'm going to get at least one comment when I say this, probably from a random Christian. No, what I'm about to say has absolutely nothing to do with the Mark of the Beast. We are having a 666 portal this month, angel number wise, but go look that up. On top of that, apparently we're having a supermoon. So, which is weird because I was always under the assumption supermoons are really fucking rare, but apparently not because we're having one every other fucking month. But yeah, supermoon this month as well. And yeah, I think I kind of went over everything that I'm going to, that I want to go over. Now, with the term granny magic, I will state I've seen some personal discord about it, where some people say that they shouldn't call themselves granny magic because it's kind of like calling yourself baby witch, but at the same time, that's literally what it is. So be cautious using that term. And if you follow an Appalachian practitioner, I guarantee you most of them will be very, very interested if you start asking questions. Um, Now, again, not every practitioner is going to share their information, but hello. Um, but yeah, also be looking out for a podcast to come out this Friday because I'm telling you, you're not going to want to miss it. I'm also going to have to keep my shit together as I'm doing this. I believe the supermoon, if I remember correctly from looking up when the full moon is, I believe it's the 17th of this month. I would use Google, but I think it would disrupt this. I believe it's the 17th, and I have a calendar. I just didn't actually mark in the day of the moon. But I believe it's the 16th. I mean the 17th. The 17th. And then I personally believe that there are 3 nights of a full moon, which is the night prior to it actually being 100% full, which is 99% full, and then you have 100% full, and then you have 99% waning, or waxing or waning one. But there's 3 nights you can harness that energy. And with that, when it comes to full moon water or anything like that, no, it does not have to be in direct moonlight. Yes, it is still okay if you accidentally sleep in and forget that it's outside on the front porch. It is okay. When it comes to charging shit like that, it's basically as the intent of you doing it and connecting that lunar energy with that. Not to mention, the moon is constantly visible. You know what I mean? The moon's always out, whether it's night or day. Full moon normally happens over a 3-night period. It's just to have to give it an official date on the calendar. Oh, okay. And with that, I don't know when it got twisted, but if you do, you do. I was always taught that you're supposed to manifest on the new moon and use it until the full moon, but apparently they got switched. So, bam. But yeah, I'm excited about this month, or at least today I am because I woke up with bones. Saturn's retrograde has officially started. That will be going all the way until I think October. I want to say October the 22nd. I may be wrong on that, but this one's gonna be a long one. Mercury retrograde has finally ended, as in it's direct right now, or the shadow period, which is normally when all the fucking shit, all the cards that were thrown up in the air then will be settling down now. So you will probably still be feeling the effects of that. Again, not every retrograde will affect you in a negative way or positive way. It depends on where it's at in your birth chart, even if it affects you at all. So look into that. If you want to look into your birth chart, the app or website that I use is Astromatrix. It is free. You can find it on Apple, not sponsored. You can find it on Apple and in the Android. 2 things though. For one, if you do not know, 3, if you do not know your exact date of birth, the time frame, that is okay too. You can pull up a general one. It is better though if you do have the time. Secondly, if you do download the app, go into the settings where the GPS is at and make sure it is calculated. That way you are getting the right degrees on each planet when you get an update. Astromatrix, I've been using it since I started all this shit. I've talked to the creator of it. They're amazing. They also have a YouTube page breaking down their app and going over certain celestial things that will be happening. I love Astromatrix the most though, is because literally it's like every day you log into the app, you get your own personal horoscope. As in, it breaks down what each transit is going to do, or what energy or lessons, or however you want to word that, you will be experiencing. It also gives you an entire calendar of all the moon cycles. It gives you a retrograde calendar. You can also compare capabilities of like different lovers and different charts. It's fucking amazing. As the moon becomes full, you're supposed to bring in what you want and banish what you don't want. And the moon gets dark, you're supposed to banish what you don't want and bring what you want. When you banish, you want to invoke, and when you invoke, you want to use. You must. Yes, I love that. And that's kind of how I was taught too. Banishing an actual cannot curse a practitioner. With the moon cycles, but I also kind of got out of that. I still do certain things on the full moon or new moon just because it's more current, however the hell you want to word that one. But I also, if you're going to do that too, start looking into planetary hours and how they can benefit your spell work. Depending on the spell work, find the planet, find that planetary hour of that date, do said spell work during that hour. It will boost the hell out of anything you do. These are things that they don't talk about online enough. And if they do, I've not met them. So kudos to you if you do, though. But yeah, that's I think that's gonna be today's live and everything. I'm just excited because I woke up and I was like, oh holy shit, there's a conversation that I can fucking actually add to. And I did an hour and 9 minutes of it. So but yes, anybody who is rewatching this, if you made it this far, drop a comment below. Like I said before, all of the books that I mentioned in this video are up on the wish list or magical library on the Amazon wish list in my link tree. On top of that, because I've not figured out how to actually connect my email to it yet, the email, if you would like to either book the $10 reading with me, which is a full oracle reading, that is either 2 questions or just a general spread. That's the most popular one, is the general spread. I use oracle. I do not use tarot. So like yes and no questions, I don't do. I can give you life advice or advice on the situation or what could happen, but that's it. Sometimes spirit or ancestors do come through. If that happens, I will let you know. It's not all the time. If you hear a term where I say, wow, this is a heavy reading, it doesn't mean bad nor good. It just means there's a lot of emotion or a lot of energy behind it. With that email, you can also schedule a magical consultation with me, which is free. Basically, we'll go over the situation that's currently going on in your life and either dictate what type of spell, if spell work is needed, and or if you just need a reading. And then if you like to book a custom spell with me, just let me know. I can send you all the things that I do. I do baneful work, but it depends on the situation. It's got to be the right situation for me to be able to do that. I actually have, I think I posted it on here too. I have a video of me making a specific jar for a little baneful working. And if not any of that, if you just have a question about magic or something regarding magic or anything like that, shoot me an email. I will answer it as well. I love helping people. And a lot of the times, the questions that get asked, I also wind up asking as well. So it's an amazing thing. We also have a Discord, link in bio. It's amazing. All the people in that community are just fucking amazing. We're all trying to help each other. I think I went over everything. Excuse me. So yeah, all of that will be in the description of this video. Also, holy shit, I should have advertised this before. We broke 600 subscribers. We're at like 604 right now. My end goal for this entire year is to break 1,000, and we're halfway there, or a little way there. But I'm super fucking excited, and yeah, I think that's going to be it. So thank y'all so much for everybody who popped in, who used it as background music or background sound, who commented, who has shared, like, all of that. Thank y'all so much. Um, I love these videos, especially when everything goes right. But yeah, thank y'all so much. Now I have started posting on my backup account on TikTok just to kind of test the waters. I will also be doing more videos like that where I'm just kind of showing you a crystal with an inspirational quote, but it's also a way that I can start showing off my crystal collection. That is also eventually going to get turned into a YouTube because I've had too many people ask me for it. I've just got to get the energy to set all and everything of it up. But yes, that is going to happen. So yeah, until then, and for anybody who is curious about my email, firelotusthewitch@gmail.com. Like I said, I take 5 per day. Sunday I normally do not take any readings, but it depends on the day. So 5 a day though. And this sale will be going on from today all the way until the 18th. So, but thank y'all so much, and yeah, I love you all, and I hope y'all have an amazing day. Peace. Wait, let me make sure. Okay.